In today's video, learn how to create a neo-soul chord melody in 3 simple steps. Let's jump into the example. How's it going? Dave here. My channel's all about helping you create awesome neo-soul and R&B sounds on your guitar. So if you're new here and that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you're notified every single time I release a new video. So let's jump straight into the video. We're talking about chord melodies today. What are chord melodies? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's where we're playing chords and a melody at the same time. Now, when we're doing a chord melody, we're thinking more about adding chords to a melody rather than adding melody to chords, okay? So we're starting with a melody and then we're putting chords on top of that melody. Now, I'll be showing you 3 simple steps that you can use to create your own chord melodies. So let's jump into the first step. And the first step is to play the melody on the top 2 strings. So you could write a melody or you could be using someone else's melody, but the most important thing is that the melody is higher up on your guitar fretboard and on the top 2 strings and maybe the 3rd string if you need it to be. These notes are going to be at the top of the chords that we're playing, so we need them to be higher up so we can do that. As I said, you can choose someone else's melody. I decided to write my own melody, and I found that the best way to write melodies is to try and sing something either in your head or out loud and then try and translate that onto guitar. That's how I find the best melodies. This step and all the other steps actually are going to take a lot of good ear training to be able to do it quickly, but we do not need any music theory. You can just do this through trial and error as well. That's the great thing about this. You don't need any music theory here. So let's take a listen to the melody that I came up with. So there's a very simple melody. And as you can see, I played it all on the top 2 strings, keeping everything on the upper register of the guitar. So that's the first step. Second step is to add root notes now. Okay, so here again, ear training and having a really good ear is going to be really useful because you'll be able to, first of all, know which root notes you want played. And also it's going to be easier for you to translate them onto guitar. But again, this is another thing that can be done purely through trial and error. You can just experiment with different root notes, seeing how they work with the melody. Now, the most important thing here is that we're not going to go too complex. We're just going to add the root notes on beats 1 and maybe beats 3 if we want to as well. We can start adding root notes on different beats at a later stage if we want to, but let's just keep it simple for now. So I'm going to show you the root notes I chose along with the melody. So we're starting the melody, and then we get to beat 1, playing this. All right, so that's all there is to this step, just adding root notes along with the melody, and we're just going to be playing these root notes on beats 1 and 3, okay? So don't overcomplicate this step. We want to keep it nice and simple. Now, the third and final step is to fill in the chords. So now we've got our root notes and the notes in the melody that are going to be played along with that root note. So for example, this chord, okay? And now I've got to fill the chord up so it sounds a bit more rich harmonically. So I played this major 7 chord. That sounds quite nice. I decided that this voicing was very tricky to play, so I just got rid of this root note here. There's still a root note here. So I just played that classic neo-soul voicing that we all know and love. Then we move on So I just filled this chord up with a dominant 7 chord. So you can use chord voicings that you already know, but if you don't really know a chord voicing that contains both this root note and the melody note, you can just experiment with different notes to see which ones work with obviously the root note and the melody note. So again, this is another case where you don't need to know music theory or how chords link with each other. You can just experiment and see what works if you just follow these 3 steps. There we go, played that dominant 7 chord. Then I played this shape here. Now this was a shape where I just experimented a little bit to try and figure out something that worked. Okay, then melody again. Played that same chord, that neosoul chord. Here's another chord that I just made up on the spot because these 2 notes, I don't really know many voicings using these 2 notes, so I just kind of came up with this little voicing here. I did the next melody note, then we had this. This chord is a minor 9 chord. I already know a minor 9 chord. Fits both the root note and the melody note, so that's handy. And then just move to the next melody note there. We play the beginning bit again. Then we play this melody here. And then another chord that I made up by experimentation here. And then we finish on a G sharp minor here. So these 2 notes were the root note and the melody note. And of course, I knew a minor 7 chord, which contained both of those notes. Okay, so you can use a mixture of chord voicings you already know and just experimenting with different notes across the fretboard to see what voicings you can come up with. And then from there, you could call this a bonus step. You can start adding things like your phrasing and your articulation and dynamics, and adding stuff like hammer-ons, some vibrato, slides. I harmonized some of the melody with sixths. I really like using sixths and just adding details where I could to make the piece sound a little bit more pretty. So there you go. It's a very, very, very simple concept. You start with the melody, you add the root notes to that melody, and then once you've got those root notes, you just fill the chords in a little bit using either voicings that you already know or coming up with voicings from scratch. There's nothing wrong with coming up with a new chord that you've either never heard of or never played before or isn't very common. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click like, let me know what you thought in the comments, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Also, if you're looking to create really awesome chord progressions, then check out the first 2 chapters of my book, Chord Charisma, which are down in the description. So that book covers how to write a diatonic chord progression, the functions of each chord in a key, so you know which chord might work best next in your chord progression, and then it shows you how to embellish these chord progressions with extensions like 9ths, 11ths and 13ths, so you can create these really cool, sophisticated sounding progressions. So that's absolutely free. Make sure you check it out in the description. If you've already got it or you don't want to check it out, then make sure you check this video here, as you're going to learn a lot more cool stuff, and I'll see you there. Have a good one.